So, let us discuss about chemical propellants, and the question arises, what do you mean by propellant? Propellant basically it will be consisting of fuel and oxidizer, right. But apart from that there will be some additives. Now, why we need to add additives and other things as you go along we will see, but if when you talk about fuel, fuel can be of course it can be solid, it can be liquid, right. It can be gaseous as well, we have seen, and similarly oxidizer also can be both any phase. As a matter of fact, we can use combination of that also, sometimes liquid and solid and gas. Like if you look at the fuels, I have given some examples, but as you go along we will learn more about it. That is basically if you look at like hydrocarbon, hydrogen and polymer and cellulose, like cellulose we use, isn't it, like in your food and other things, like can it be used as a fuel, right. And oxidizer like oxygen, of course like which is there in air, we use for combustion purposes in the I think, but it can be used in as a chemical propellant. Chlorine, fluorine, ammonia, ammonium perchlorate, nitric acid, several of them we can use as oxidizer. As I told you earlier that oxidizer can be like act as a fuel in some places. If you remember in the beginning I had told, whenever you use fluorine, any other things will be become a fuel, even oxidizer itself will be a fuel for the fluorine. And additives, right. But before really getting into this all constituents and what are the additives and why you will use additives, let us look at the properties of the propellant which will help us to choose. If you look at, we will be discussing about solid and liquid propellant, but keep in mind that each propellant will be having certain specific characteristics properties, right, which we will not be discussing now, but as you go along I will be telling sometimes. But what we will be looking at is the common properties. Of course, sometimes I will be specifying. For example, a propellant must have a higher heat of combustion or to get the high heat release rate, because that is very important, and you keep in mind that the amount of heat being released per unit volume in case of rocket engine is much higher as compared to your burner, even gas turbine engine, right. So, therefore, it is very important to have a high calorific value, so that you can have a higher heat release rate, and also it must have a higher gas temperature, because after it is getting burned the chamber temperature must be much higher. Why? Because then we can have a higher characteristics velocity. We have already derived the relationship for characteristics velocity, right, which will be give you the specific impulse. Higher specific impulse is a mandate, it is a requirement for a better performance of the rocket engine. And beside this, molecular mass, like basically the molecular mass or the molecular weight must be lower. We have seen in the expression of thrust coefficient, like it comes as a inversely proportional to the molecule. That means, if the molecular weight being lower, then average molecular weight of the gas which will be expanding in the nozzle, then you will get a higher specific thrust, of course, for the same time pressure and other level. And the another very important thing what is that we always have lower specific gravity, and to reduce this what you call molecular weight of the gas, average molecular weight of the gas, generally hydrogen oxygen being preferred, and which will give you the higher specific impulse. And propellant density will be higher, so that it will be compact. It may be valid for your what you call liquid fuel and solid fuel, particularly for the solid fuel, because the storage space is very important. The density will be higher, that means it will be compact in the same volume, like a mass will be higher, so that you can have kind of things, and your chamber volume of the liquid propellant will be reduced if you are using a higher density propellant. So, therefore, it is very important. The stability of the fuel and oxidizer is very important. For example, you have kept some propellant, right, and when you are firing it is become unstable, it is whether the solid or the liquid. For example, sometimes we are trying to add some aluminum particle to the kerosene what we use, but the particles what we are using basically to augment the characteristics, combustion characteristics of the fuel. Now, if it is separated out, if it is not really settling down in the liquid, then naturally you will be in deep trouble, right. So, therefore, the stability of the fuel and oxidizer is very important, like people keep this propellant for ages together to winning a war, they will be storing the propellant, solid propellant, right. And suppose by the time they fire, it is not firing, it is unstable, then it will be a problem. And beside this, storability is very important, whether you could store or not properly, whether leakage is there or whether it is a vapor pressure and other things, one has to look at it. So, corrosiveness and toxicity, suppose there is a leakage, there is a toxic, or people are handling, people will be handling the liquid fuel and other things particularly. If it is toxic, then it is a big problem. And last but not least is the cost, because economy drives the everything. So, therefore, cost is very important to reduce the running cost of these things. And there is a castability, there are several other properties which will be specific to the solid propellant kind of things, and so also the liquid propellant. So, now let us look at the solid propellant now. The solid propellant can be broadly divided into two categories. One is double base propellant, or what we call homogeneous propellant, right, and other is your composite propellant. But however, in recent time there are another two kinds of them come up, like one is the composite modified double base propellant, right, and there is another one, nitramine propellants. Nitramine propellants, like it will be basically nitramine based, the RDX, this our RDX being used by the terrorist group kind of things, they are very much familiar with that. Do you know what it is? Anybody? Because it is coming in newspaper, you must be knowing, I guess. What is the full form of RDX? Is basically research development explosive, right. And what is HMX? High melting explosive. That means we are doing research to produce the explosive, so that other people antisocial elements can use that for their winning a war against the people, right, and creating havoc. That means we need to be very, very particular about that. Not it is important to generate knowledge, but at the same time we should know how to use it properly, right. So, if you look at, one can say that double base propellant, which is homogeneous propellant also. That means both the fuel, like one example nitrocellulose, right, other is nitroglycerin, right, which can be combined together and used. It is like your premixed flame. Premixed flame means fuel and oxidizer mixed together before combustion takes place, right, yes or no. So, I can really make a one fuel which will be containing the oxidizer and which will be containing the fuel together, and you will get. Therefore, we call it homogeneous propellant. Composite is the heterogeneous propellant, right, which will be having their own identity, right, own identity in the sense like each, suppose there is a fuel and there is a oxidizer, I am talking about solid propellant, they will be having together, right. It is like your motor, motor like you use for your concrete making, right. Okay. There will be granules, there will be cement, there will be sand, all together. It is having own identity, right. There is having a surface, their own identity. But if I mix together, right, and cast it, it's like a one itself. You cannot identify physically, right. That is homogeneous propellant. And composite modified double base propellant. and I have already told you RDX and MHMX, which are example of nitramine. So, typical double base propellant, right, will be like this. One is nitrocellulose, which will be containing 13.25 percentage of nitrogen and 51.4% of weight, and it is basically a polymer. Polymer, you know, is a fuel. We use a lot of polymer in our, even in the cert, you know, we will be having some polyurethane and other things, right, plastic. So, and nitroglycerin, which is basically a liquid and it is explosive plasticizer and which is a oxidizer, the percentage wise is 42.93. There are several additives. So, if you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additives are being added, but if you look at their percentage are very small as compared to the fuel and as compared to the nitroglycerin, which is oxidizer. So, diethyl phthalate is 3% and which is used as a non explosive plasticizer to remove or to improve the mechanical properties. Why you need to have mechanical properties? Because it will be subjected to a lot of stress, high pressure, because you know, in the propellant will be subjected to a very high pressure. And if you look at the ethyl centralite, which is again stabilizer to counter act the autocatalytic effect decomposition of a major constituent. That might be some, you know, because of high temperature it will be some constituent will be autocatalytic. So, therefore, you need to avoid it, otherwise it will be explosive, you cannot control. So, potassium sulphate, which is 1.2%, it means to promote the smooth burning at the low temperature, like at low temperature, then you know the propellant may not burn, that is a big problem. So, therefore, you need to have a smooth burning, therefore, and carbon black, you know, which is being used is basically 0.2%, that is to added to the to make it transparent, to make the transparent propellant for preventing the transmission of radiation energy, which may cause internal ignition around the internal voids or the impurities. That means, if you look at, if it will be difficult to really look at it, what it will be. I think you people are may not be getting, I will tell you. See, this is basically a double base propellant, right. Okay. It is contains the nitrocellulose and nitroglycerin. If you look at this is having a hole here, right. This is the surface, and this kind of burning is known as what you call side burning grain, right. This is the grain basically, which we will be discussing little later on, right. So, therefore, and this is contains all the constituent whatever, you know, one can think of, fuel, oxidizer and additive together. This is the propellant, and then generally this is a double base propellant. And if you look at candelilla wax, which is used, you know, in a very low percentage, act as a lubricant for extrusion process, because what I have showed you, it actually one has to be extruded, various shapes you want to have. As you go along, we will see it is a cylindrical one, there might be a star shape, there might be several other shapes we will get, right. So, what I was telling that this is basically about the solid propellant kind of things, and the what you call double base propellant, if you look at the chemical formula is basically C3H5NO2 in the bracket 3, that is nitroglycerin, which is basically a liquid, but when you together it becomes solidified whenever it will come to the nitrocellulose, right, that is C6H7O2 NO2 bracket. So, there is a composite propellants, like composite propellant is basically, you know, it can be fuel, it can be oxidizer, right, it is heterogeneous nature. This is the one what is being used is STPB, which is being used by or in India, like hydroxyl terminated polybutadiene, right, and CTPB, which is similar in nature, is basically a polymer kind of thing, carbonyl terminated polybutadiene, right. And there are modern polymer, there are several other things like, you know, polysulfides, polyesters, you know, like polyesters we use for our cloth and other places, epoxy, polyurethane, cyzelen and polybutadiene, as I already told you, you know, basically STP, BCTP which is being used, and polystyrene, polyxylogen and phenolic, cellular resin, several and varieties of them. This is also sometimes known as the binder, it will bind the oxidizer molecule. So, therefore, it is together, and it can be, and there are several metals which are being used, but those will be in some very less quantity to augment the what you call the burning rate, like aluminum, magnesium, boron, metal hydrate, several other like can be there. I will just show you like oxidizers, which are common oxide. There might be n number of oxidizer, solid propellant. One is potassium perchlorate and ammonium perchlorate, which is being popularly used. Like if you look at oxygen percentage, generally potassium perchlorate 46%, and it is a quite high density 2491.19 kg per meter. Ammonium perchlorate and 34%, of course, it is being used, and this density is 1937. But beside this, like ammonium nitrate, potassium nitrate, lithium perchlorate is being used, but temperature if you look at highest is basically potassium perchlorate, next is lithium perchlorate, which is not being very much used, but the ammonium perchlorate is being used very much, even like it has to be used for explosive purposes. So, as I told you, RDX is also being used, is a combined, is a cyclotrimethylene trinitramine, right, and the HMX is basically cyclo tetraethylene tetranitramine, right, and the formula is similar. Instead of here it is CS2 bracket 3, HNO2 bracket, like in the bracket is 3, but here it is the 4, right. So, let us start this lecture 38 with a thought process from Albert Einstein, which states that great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from the mediocre minds. It is a very profound statement. Let me not dwell upon it, and let us recall what we had learned in the last lecture. We had basically learnt about the how to take care of performance parameter like your what we call characteristics velocity, and we have derived relationship for that, and then we moved into how to relate this thrust coefficient with the characteristics velocity and find out the ISP, specific impulse, right. And then of course, we can get thrust from the thrust coefficient, and then pressure, chamber pressure, and knowing the throat area, we can get the thrust relationship. Beside this, we also looked at two other parameters. One is combustion efficiency, which is basically ratio of characteristic velocity actual divided by characteristic velocity ideal. Ideal you can get from the basically the relation whatever we have derived, but actually you can measure the temperature and then other parameters, and then you can do that. And beside this, effectiveness of the thrust coefficient, we have also looked at it, and after that we moved into the propellants. In propellant we looked at propellant general characteristics, then we looked at solid propellant. What we will be doing now is basically looking at the liquid propellants. Liquid propellants basically can be classified into two categories. One is hypergolic propellant, right. Hypergolic propellant means self igniting. That means you need not to give any ignition energy for initiating the combustion. Don't you think it will be very hazardous to do that, right? Because if I will have two, one is fuel and oxidizer, or then it will just go, then it will start reacting, then it is a very dangerous thing to handle. But that is also being used, and non-hypergolic propellant where you need to provide the ignition energy, requisite amount of ignition energy, right. So, therefore, it can be broadly defined by hypergolic and non-hypergolic, and hypergolic propellant, both the hypergolic and the non-hypergolic can be divided to one basically one can monopropellant and bipropellant. Of course, there is a tripropellant as well, but I am not discussing about it. So, the monopropellant in case of hypergolic, I have taken two examples. Monopropellant means it is the single propellant where both single propellant, liquid propellant, where both the fuel and oxidizer will be together. This is a very example is hydrogen peroxide. Now, if how it will react then, right? If it will reacting, then it is difficult to handle, but what is that? It can react at a high temperature, that is one thing, and other thing is that it will react when it even in the ambient temperature, right? It can react whenever it will come in contact with the what we call catalyst, right. So, therefore, the catalyst being used for like example platinum and then magnesium and some other things, right. Platinum is being preferred, although it is very costly. If you react with that in presence of that, S2O2 will be decomposed into hydrogen and oxygen, and it will be giving certain amount of heat, but this amount of heat what is being released during this reaction is very, very low. Generally it will give you around ISP of 147. Now, question arises where you will use this, use monopropellant because the reliability is more. So, therefore, it is being used for the small thrust level applications or the smaller, particularly altitude control, or you are having a satellite and you will have to put into another orbit corrections and other things, then you will be using. And hydrogen is also being used and as a monopropellant, and whenever it will be coming in contact with the iridium, a catalyst, of course, those catalysts are being placed on the surface of the alumina particles, particles or in a conduits and other things, but generally particles are being used as a surface area. So, then it will be decomposed into ammonia and then hydrogen and then other things, right, and I will be discussing about that. So, those things will release heat and you will get the also ISP there. So, beside this, if you look at the bipropellant under this hyperregal condition, UDMH, unsymmetrical dimethyl hydrogen, right, RFNA, that is basically red fuming nitric acid, when they come together and it will be liquid phase, and when they will come together they will start reacting at the liquid phase, okay. And then of course, it will vaporize and then heat will release, and then you will get the even gas phase reactions. So, similarly, nitrogen tetroxide and what you call and nitric acid, when they will come in contact, they will also start igniting itself. So, therefore, hypergolic propellants can be, there are several other varieties, but I have taken 2 of examples, and these are being used routinely in case of your what you call rocket engines. The monopropellant, if you look at, it can be have again divided into 2 categories whenever we are discussing about non-hypergolic propellant. One is simple, where fuel and oxidizer in the same molecule, for example, methyl nitrate, right. Methyl nitrate, it is a very, very explosive. What will be the its detonation velocity? It will be something 8,000 meter per second. It is quite high value, right. If you look at methyl nitrate, it is very easy to make. Of course, it is simple, but it is very dangerous to that. You take a nitric acid and alcohol, right, methyl alcohol, and then you put together and then you will get that. But again, you will have to do some water will be coming into pictures, and then you will have to condensate it and then get that. But it is a quite a dangerous, and which is being used, and one has to be careful about this methyl nitrate, right. And composite, that means mixture of oxidizer and fuel, because if you look at this all fuel and oxidizer in the methyl nitrate in the molecule itself, but here you are making a mixture of nitric acid and amyl acetate, and then you will have to give energy, like some kind of ignition energy, because it is basically non-hypergolic. And beside this, the bipropellant, there are several varieties. I have taken an example as a liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen, which is being used here, and liquid hydrocarbons, and then UDMH, even you can use unsymmetric dimethyl as an MMH, monomethyl hydrogen, and other things you can use. So, as I told you that in the presence of catalyst like a platinum, Ag and Fe2O3, that is ferric oxide, magnesium oxide, several others, one can really decompose this, not hydrogen peroxide and also hydrogen, but hydrogen generally it is being what you call, whenever it will come in contact with iridium catalyst, right, and then nitrogen what you call hydrogen tetra hydride will be converted into 2 NH3 plus S2, and NH3 will be again converted into 2S2 plus N2, right. And keep in mind, whenever you are using catalyst, there are several other poisoning of catalyst, and then there will be also a gas will be, heat will be released in the pores, pressure will be released. There are several complexities which I am not getting into it, and those things has to be looked at. And it is, as I told you, it is mostly used for small rocket for altitude and attitude control. And as I told you that UDMH and RFFNA is being used for your what you call the liquid fuel kind of things, right. And the common what you call the common liquid, I have just taken some example like liquid oxygen, which is being used for a cryogenic engine along with the liquid hydrogen, and one can use also hydrogen oxide as another liquid, and of course, some other kind of a fuel one can use, and HNO3, that is the red fuming nitric oxide, and white fuming nitric oxide WFNA, both are being used as the oxidizer along with several fuel like saturated, unsaturated hydrocarbon. Some of the examples is kerosene, that is your what you call research propellants, and then amines, alcohols, several other one can think of. And besides the tetranitromethane, which is being used for as an oxidizer, and it can be go with the boranes, with several varieties one can think of, like your hydrocarbon CnH2n plus 2 or some other things, it can be like that, several of them, like nitrogen peroxide, which can be like as oxidizer, liquid fluorine as oxidizer. And if you look at this ammonia and hydrogen, UDMH, unsymmetric dimethyl hydrogen, MMH, aniline, like which is being, and xylidine is being also used as a liquid fuel, several of them. But we in India basically people are using UDMH and hydrogen, I think, and nowadays of course people are trying to get this liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen kind of, and the organometallic, which is a very good one which is coming up. So, let us look at a optimum performance of some of the bipropellants, just to give a flavor, that is liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. If I take an oxidizer will have a mass ratio and adiabatic temperature, I will get 3251 Kelvin. Of course, actual temperature will be little lower, and you will get that C star, that is a characteristic velocity 2386, and ISP you will get the highest, that is 455. Of course, this is the ideal one, actual one will be little lower than that. You see, if you look at whatever number I have put, it is all ideal done from the what you call calculations, right. So, liquid oxygen and liquid methane, you can have a little much lower characteristic velocity, therefore, ISP is lower. And if you look at fluorine and hydrogen, it is what you call highest, this is ISP, but it is never being, or it is rarely being used because of fluorine, it is difficult to handle. So, other things like nitrogen tetroxide, UDMH and N2H4, the hydrogen 50%, this is being used in India for 342 kind of things, and then other things. So, having talked about this propellant, now we will have to look at the solid propellant rocket engines. If you look at what are the like parts one can think of, like we know there will be casing, right, there will be grain, I have told you, and you need to have insulator, we can have igniter, and of course, like once it is fired rocket engine, it has to be terminated. If it is there, that means we should have a way of means of terminating, liquid thrust terminator and nozzle. So, these are the constituents. So, if I look at a diagram, if you look at, this is basically your casing, this is your casing, right, and this is we call grain. Grain is basically consists of propellant. I have showed you a grain, right, where it is having certain structures, right. and insulator is given because it should heat should not go away, and also it should not get burned in the towards end, right. That is also, and this is having a nozzle which is throat area, and this is a thrust terminator and igniters. So, that is to initiate the combustion, and this is basically end burning rate. Keep in mind, when you start, unless you develop the pressure, you cannot really have a thrust, you cannot really burn it. For example, like we must have a diaphragm here. I will be showing a diagram where we will see that there is a diaphragm here, and when I ignite it such that it will be burned, some heat will be released, and then it will not allow the gas to go through the nozzle to start with. So, that pressure will build up, and then you will have a higher burning rate. That we will see little later on, but I am just telling beforehand that how it is ignited. And this is the end burning grain, and if you look at this side burning, the burning will be taking place in this zone, over here. This is known as side burning grain, and I will be discussing about this is the end burning. It is like a cigarette burning, like the way people use cigarette, like it will be burning one way, like if it is a cigarette, the burning is taking place. This is basically end burning grain. So, it is having the similar components like casing, insulator, grain, igniter, thrust terminator, and nozzle. Now, when you talk about that, what really is happening, what are the processes involved in the solid propellant? As I told you that it is basically when you are igniting, you are giving certain amount of initial energy, right. What it will be doing? It will be transfer, right, to the solid surface, because it is very difficult to solid surface. How we ignite in a wood, do you know? How do we do? Of course, most of you might not be knowing how to ignite a wood. Wood, wood is a solid fuel, right, because all of you are using LPG gas. Just you go and click a button and you will get a flame, right. But to burn a wood is very difficult. You will have to need another flame with some kind of a what you call paper, or some other kind of a what you call flame, right, candle, or a wake flame, and then help, because initial time it takes time. Similarly, in this case we will be using a igniter, which will give you some gust, and some particulate will be there also, right. So, if you look at what really is happening, suppose I am igniting somewhere here, that means some gases will be here, it will be going, right, and then it will be igniting here locally, right. Some particulate will go, hot particulate will go and impede into that person, right. That is one, local ignition will be taking place. And let us say that what will happen after that flame is established. Let us say there is a flame. If you look at, this is basically a flame. If flame is established, right, then what is happening? The heat is going, like if it is a heat, it can go by the radiation, right. Okay. And this radiation, there might be some surface. Flame need not to be near to the what you call this propellant, and when the heat will come, then there will be some melting may happen, some liquid may be formed. You might have seen when you were putting the wood into the fire, you will say the water is bubbling out, right, because water is there. And similarly, in this propellant, water will not be there, but there will be some constituent will be first converted into the liquid, and then it is not that all the propellant will be there, some this characteristic, but some of them. So, and then heat can be convected due to convection, right. It can come to the solid surface by conduction, and it can come by the radiation, right. When it comes, then what will happen? It will be trying to melt, and sometimes it will be pyrolysis is occurring. What is this pyrolysis? Pyrolysis will be a process where the thermal degradation of the fuel will be taking place without really coming in contact with the oxidizer, or in the absence of oxidizer, or in the very low per quantity of oxidizer. So, that is thermal degradation will be taking place, and this will give to the gasification also, right. Gasification is the next phase where it will be converted solid into the gas, that may be liquid, which will be converted into again gas, and then when it will go, the fuel and oxidizer will be diffusing towards the flame, and the flame will be, and then will be coming over here. So, if you look at, this is a very complex process. That means, if you look at, let us say this is your oxidizer, right, this is your fuel. That means, the field portion and the granular portion is oxidized, because generally in a, if you look at composite propellant, the binder is basically a fuel. Binder means this is which will be mixing together, like your cement in a mortar, it is a binder. So, similarly exothermic reaction, if you look at it, is a quite a complex process, right. We need to know now how this surface is receding, that means this surface will be receding, it will be going toward that as it time progresses, it is getting consumed. This solid fuel will be converted into the liquid and sometimes and directly to the vapor, and the vapor will be there and it will participate in the combustion and the flame will be occur, and once this flame is formed, this flame will support the all combustion process, make it self sustained, right. But we need to understand like how much propellant is being burned, because we need to look at the thrust, because the thrust expression we know m dot p v e, and of course this portion is there. If I say that this is fully expanded nozzle, right, I will get a thrust is m dot p into v e, right, and I need to know what is this m dot p, that means mass of the propellant which is passing or going through, right, which is being generated due to the burning of the solid propellant. So, if you look at that is of course for the time being we are saying that is like sorry, that this propellant, solid propellant is converted into gas, that means whatever the solid is being converted into gas, that is the mass flow rate of gas, and which is nothing but rho p. Rho p is the density of the propellant, A b is the surface area. If I take surface area and perpendicular to this plane, then I will get a whole surface area, right, and r dot is the regression rate, that means the amount of the propellant is being regress or reduced, and keep in mind that this will be mm per second, like, or you can say centimeter per second. Generally it is a very low rate at which it is being receded the surface. So, therefore, we call it as a we use it mm per second. Keep in mind it will be always perpendicular to the surface of the propellant. So, having done that, question arises how we will determine, because if you look at the processes what is happening, we have seen it is quite complex, right, it is quite complex, and one can say look I will model it. Yes, people have attempted to model, but it is not that easy. Till today also people are struggling to get a model it, a model prediction to be as good as experiment, but still it is not that in a position to give you good result. But however, experiment being conducted, keep in mind that in experiment being conducted under a steady state, there is no flow conditions. In actual situation flow will be there and several complex. Here it is a steady state. You use a burner which is a propellant here and having insulation, it is having a propellant holder and it is in a chamber, right, and I can use this pressurize this chamber, right, with the help of nitrogen, of course controlling valve and ball valve, right. First fill this chamber, after installing this propellant in the propellant holder, I can pressurize it and then I can ignite it, okay. And when it is ignited, this mass burning rate right will be going out, where the propellant will be receding in this direction, it is one dimensional almost, one can assume. Then there will be increase in pressure. Now I need to keep the pressure constant. So there will be surge tank which will keep the pressure constant, right, whatever the being consumed, whatever being produced the gas, because the solid and it will be converted into gas, that means chamber pressure will increase. So that will be taken care, so that you can keep a constant pressure, and you will be finding out what is the time it take from here to travel this distance, this front of the propellant surface, and how much time it will take, right. It will take the length. If I know this length and if I know the time, right, I can get what is this burning rate, that it will be mm per second, right. So, by this way we can estimate, we can determine the regression rate of the burner. If you look at this is right, basically r dot it goes by a PCN. You can say that this is basically empirical relation, there might be several other of them, right, but generally it is a well known and it is being used, but however literature is having also other relationship. we will be using this relationship in this course, and it is known as Valley's law, and also it is known as Saint-Roberts law. Keep in mind that A is a constant, it is not a constant, but you can get that as a combustion constant kind of things, and which is a function of propellant temperature, because temperature propellant will be having certain temperatures, right. And S is basically the combustion index, because it is the dependent on the pressure. Like if you look at what we are learning from here, the regression rate will be dependent on the chamber pressure, okay, that is, and it is power to the n can be any value that we need to obtain from the experiments. Chronometer will tell you how much distance it travel and what is the time you can measure, right. Of course, there is a several other things have come up. You can take a photograph, you can have a wear, and you can find out how much time it is taken for traveling certain distance. That will be basically is a chrono. Chrono means time wise kind of thing will come. So if you look at A constant is basically A, this is a constant, right. Ti is the what you call self ignition temperature of the propellant, and Tp is the propellant temperature, and Tp will be changing depending upon the environment, depending upon the other things whatever it is, but whereas ignition self ignition temperature will be dependent on the type of propellant is being used, right. It is remains same. So basically if you look at A is not really a constant, right, because Tp will be varying, we will see that how it is varying, how it is affecting the regression rate. So let us look at a typical data, burning rate in centimeter per second versus the pressure. Keep in mind that pressure is plotted in the logarithm scale, and burning rate also being plotted in a logarithmic scale, right, that you should keep in mind. If you look at this double base propellant, this is what you call nitrocellulose and nitroglycerin being generally used, and it is it is goes on increasing with pressure, but however it is a very low value as compared to APCMD, that is like combined modified double base propellant, composite modified double base propellant, right. If you look at that is a 20% and 150 microns, and the other one is your same thing, but it is having 30% AP and 150 microns. So you get a higher. You can think why not increase it further, but if you increase then the structural rigidity, because ammonium perchlorate is a crystals like size will be dependent on that, therefore there is a limitation, but you can increase further to some extent, not to a larger extent. And a very interesting thing you will see, this is 150 micron of the average size diameter of the what AP particles, right. But if I reduce to 18, you get a very higher burning rate, which is having similar behavior so far pressure is concerned. That means if I go on reducing, that means it also depends on the particle size. People are now talking about nanoparticles, because nanotechnology or nano science is coming up. So people are doing research and they will get a higher burning rate, and always it is important to enhance the regression rate. At the same time, keeping this pressure index as a smaller one, why it is so, we will see in a moment, maybe this thing. So if I will vary this Tp and keeping this A as a constant, and also Ti ignition temperature, self ignition temperature for a particular propellant, if I plot this R dot and Pc, you can see that when Tp is 240, you will see that this is burning rate, it is increasing, but it is having a low value as compared to the Tp of 280 and 320 is having higher value. That means it is indicating that propellant temperature also plays an important role in enhancing the regression rate for a particular chamber pressure, right. So if you look at, it is a function of various parameters, and keep in mind that this relationship is semi empirical, means one has to be very careful about the units being used in that particular expression. It is not a generalized one, you must keep in that mind, right. So therefore one has to be very careful while using its unit, and you should use the same unit whatever it is given, right, that you will have to be careful. and it will be good to have a predicting this regression rate. Of course, lot of work is going on, but still it is in the or a what you call not in a mature state. I can't say immature, not in a mature state. So, now if you look at, we talked about this R dot APCN, and now question is the regression rate is a function of pressure, right, chamber pressure. Now, there might be several ways, we have seen that ways one can think of. One is I am plotting here ln R with the ln PC, you will see there is a the regression rate basically increases with the pressure, but after that it is remaining constant. That kind of thing is really very important to know, and keep in mind this relationship will be valid for the which it is being obtained. That means, experiment is conducted for a certain pressure ratio, it will be valid for that. So, you find a very strange kind of propellant like plateau burnings and similarly Mesha burning, that means the regression rate increases and it decreases, and people deliberately do that because there is a something you are having a requirement, the thrust should increase, then you need to have a decrease, you can go for this, or you have a thrust is a what you call increased thrust you need, and then you will go on keeping the same thrust level. So, you can use a plateau. I will just summarize what we have learned, that burning rate or the regression rate, see I will be using this term interchangeably, depends on the following condition, that is, one is chamber pressure, because the gas phase reaction plays an important role in providing heat to the propellant burning surface, and initial temperature of the propellant, that is Tp, and it will be dependent on combustion gas temperature, and very important thing which I did not discuss, that is the flow of hot gases, right, which will be, for example, in a this thing, suppose the propellant is burning and then the gases will come and it will be moving at certain velocities, right, and this velocity, because it is moving, some heat transfer will be taking place. So, that means some convective heat transfer will be taking place, and that will affect the regression rate. Okay. So, that is known as erosive burning, and we will be discussing little bit, because I am not getting into erosive burning or other thing, but we will be discussing sometimes, right. That also will affect the regression rate, which you cannot get in this expression. This expression you cannot get, because this is under the steady state, no flow is taking place, right. So, therefore, that has to be conducted in actual rocket engines like this, what I have shown. And beside this, motor acceleration and spinning, for example, motor is accelerating, it will be also affecting the regression rate, right, and spinning, suppose it is moving and then taking a turn. So, that is also will be also affecting the rocket regression rate kind of things. So, we will look at this chamber pressure in a solid propellant rocket engines, right, because we are interested to look at what is really happening in the rocket engines kind of thing. But as I told you, there are two kinds of burning grain, one can think of end burning grain, and then this is the let us consider that, and gas being generated due to the burning surface, because what will happen, this will be burning out. So, when it is going, then some gas will be generated here and it will be passing through the nozzle, this is your nozzle, right, it is passing through the nozzle. So, if you look at the mass of the propellant which is getting burned, which will be equal to rho p A b, this is your A b. If I take this cross section over here, I will get a surface, this is basically A b, right, and then R dot, the R dot is moving perpendicular to this, this is basically R dot, which will be moving, the surface is moving with a certain rate that we call a regression rate, which will be perpendicular to this surface, that is R dot, and we have already using this relationship, instead of R dot it will be APCN, right. Now, and certain amount of mass flow rate which is passing through the nozzle, because some being generated because of burning of propellant surface or the propellant, and the gas is also going through the nozzle, and we will assume for the time being, or maybe most of the cases it is a choked one. So, we will say that what is the amount of mass flow rate will be passing through, under choked condition. That is, we have already derived, that is A t P c root over R T c root over gamma 2 by gamma plus 1 power to the gamma plus 1 divided by 2 gamma minus 1. You can say that this portion, this portion is nothing but your capital gamma, right. So, by striking a mass balance in the rocket engine, we can say that the amount of mass accumulated in these will be basically the amount of gas which is being generated due to the propellant burning, that is m dot g, minus the amount of mass which is going out through the nozzle. That means, some of the mass will be accumulated in the combustion chamber, right, with the time. As the time goes, it will be accumulated. So, and if I take this as an ideal gas mass, like then I can write down P V m mass is equal to P V by R T. And if I will assume the T c, the chamber temperature, to remain constant for a particular propellant, right, during the operation, then I can integrate that one, that is V c by R T c d P c by d t plus P c R T c d V c by d t. Keep in mind that this one is what? Change in what you call change in the volume, chamber volume with respect to time, and this one change is due to what? Due to the burning of propellant. So, that will be basically, if you look at it, is what you call rho g into A b A P c n, that means rho g A b, right, and R dot, this is nothing but your R dot. So, this is the amount of change in volume with respect to time, right. And of course, the for mg mass we have already derived here, right, and then this is for your this case for the nozzle. So, you will get this expression. That means, if I look at this, this is basically, if I take this portion over this side, I will get V c divided by R t c d P c by d t is equal to A b, because A b is common, A P c n is common. So, rho p minus rho g minus A t P c gamma divided by root over R T c, right. And if I will assume this to be steady state, that means this is 0 for steady state, right, d P c by d t is 0. So, if that is the case, then what I will get, that I will get A b A P c by n rho p minus rho g is equal to A t P c gamma divided root over R T c, right. It is just simple under steady state condition. So, if I take this out, I will get P c is equal to A b by A t, A in the bracket rho p minus rho g divided by root over R T c power to the 1 minus 1 divided by 1 minus n, right. So, if you look at here, very simplification one can think of, rho p, rho p is very greater than rho z. For example, if I take a propellant of solid propellant, what will be density? It will be something 150 kg per meter cube. If I look at gas density, what it would be? High temperature, it will be very low. It will be maybe 0.2, 0.3 kg per meter, because if we take ambient air, sorry, it will be order of 1 kg per meter cube kind of things, because the pressure is high, right. But at the same time, temperature is high. So, if you look at it, is very small. So, one can neglect this term, to simplify. So, with this I will stop over. We will see how we can use this relationship and arrive at the thrust law, that means the variation of thrust with respect to time for different grain configuration.